They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another dawn. Oh, if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. You're listening to Bridges Programming. This is Sunday on the Front Stoop, and we are here. Gesundheit.
Just when you switch the picture, sneezing.
And we are here. This is the first production that we're doing out of Moorhaven, Florida. Beautiful little town, very poor. I sometimes call it Poor Haven, but it's really Moorhaven, Florida, and it's a beautiful spot. The opening scene is the yard here in Moorhaven, and it's probably a most beautiful spot you can imagine. So,
well, one of them.
One of the most beautiful. I mean, this is the actual home of the Seminole Indian tribes, who have never been defeated.
The Everglades.
In the Everglades, and this is the top of the Everglades, and we have with us Susan Comont.
Hello.
And Dennis Carius.
On the phone, and Jeff Beller sitting
beside me. You know, there's Moorhaven right where you are than in all the rest of Florida.
Oh, there's Moorhaven. Moorhaven, yes.
Yes, we used to call it Moorhaven.
So this.
Moorhaven. Oh, God bless you, both of you.
And this is brought to you by the renewable energy measurement, the human renewable energy measurement, and you can see that if you on the screen. It says Bridges Programming, bridgesprogramming.com.
It's coming across.
And then it's also brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure, which is the impedance behind the program, to say that all human beings should have their basic needs met, will have their basic needs met for 1 hour of their life's work. That's their education, food, and shelter, not their wants, but their needs. The wants is what makes us human, because everybody wants something differently, different color shirt, different kind of house, different kind of cars, how they think as far as their wants go, but their needs are always the same. So basic needs met, then you have 23 more hours a day to work, if you'd like to choose to work, to have your wants met. But you become your own. There's no more minimum wage. No more welfare. Everyone in the world has their basic needs met with this simple measurement. So that's what this program's about, and that's what the impedance behind Bridges Programming is about, and all the other programmings we do on it is to help understand and get the concept across, the human renewable energy measure. That's the point of it, to help humanity. So anybody who has a humanitarian program is more than welcome to do this. Okay, I'm hoping, Dennis, you can get online and see how this thing is looking. We'll probably get some emails if it came out good or not. But Susan's.
Do you want me to go ahead and read what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, there's only one other thing on your screen now. Is called renewtheearth.org, and that's a nonprofit group, 501c3. You can donate to. It helps pay the bills for our internet services and whatever else we do to try to get this message out. And Renew the Earth is also
Well, it
been
comes
around for a long time to talk about.
promoting renewable energy,
Renewable
sustainable
energy, right.
practices,
And
compatible practice,
and
compatible practices with our
Environment.
existence on this in the environment of the planet here.
and we want to help humanity. That's the whole point of these programs.
Well,
So
and
I'm-
also just sustaining our species, right?
So I'm going to step back a bit and then let Susan do her thing. But meanwhile, just to make it simpler, I'll switch over later on to a different view. So we'll see what happens on that. Okay, I'm going to go sit back and let Susan do her.
This is interesting because when you look at us, you've got long hair on here, I got long hair on here, and you got the short hair, and I got no beard. I mean, it's kind of a yin-yang kind of visual.
And
I don't know what that
I'm
means.
very fat, so I put a pillow in front of my belly so I don't stick out too much. So
But I'm gonna, no, that's not.
Oh,
I think you look fine
blue
without
shirt
the
with
pillow.
long beard. Okay.
Okay.
Susan,
I
right
hear
up-
you there, Dennis. What's up?
I can see right up to the screen with the paper. All you have to do is hold the paper in front of it, and I'll be able to read it too.
What paper?
Oh, he's looking at the screen. Okay,
What paper are you seeing?
I'm going to give you a view of what Florida looks like.
Yeah,
now.
well, I read the summary. Why don't we
Go
do
ahead.
that? Because then I don't have to keep looking up to acknowledge, whoever's watching or listening. Today we have a friend, Lou Isme, back in New York, who sent us or actually handed us an article, but it is online. And he felt that it was within the general area of our concept that we keep talking about with the human renewable energy measure, and trying to define it and be more precise about it, and encouraging other people to define it with us, because it's about our survival, all of us, our human survival. The planet will be here and other life will be here if we're not here, but if we're interested in going forward as a species, there are certain things that need to be considered in common, in finding out what our commonality is and what will be essential for human survival. But anyways, this article is called A New Story. And it's written by David Korten, and I'll just read my little summary here that I wrote up last night. David Korten is spelled Korten, described as a, quote, leading voice for economic and social justice, unquote, calls for a new story, and I put that in quotes because that's the name of his article. In his article of that name, written April 22nd, 2015. You can find it under his name and the title, A New Story, if you want to read it in its entirety. We will be talking about various aspects of his thinking in this piece and try to find out where we agree and where we're not convinced by his argument. He taught at Harvard Graduate School of Business, but seems to feel comfortable writing about creating what he refers to as a, quote, authentic story, unquote, for our species that will help us shift from, quote, money to life as our story, unquote, for our species that will help us shift from, money to life as our defining value, unquote. Sorry, I read that
In
wrong.
other words, the value.
Right.
The value is different than the.
Should be life and not money. But he does not draw on his business background to come to the conclusion that the place where the premise of our story is bad for life and survival of our species is in the way we have been told the story of economics and how to live within it. This is the biggest lie ever told. You might even call it a, quote, tall tale. David Korten gets very close many times in this article and even quotes from Pope Francis, who is right on, and Thomas Berry, who is also right on. So what's up? And I wonder, when I was reading through the article, why he didn't, why he got lost, sort of. He kept coming around to you know, the same conclusions that Pope Francis came to, and he quotes Thomas Berry, who's a Catholic theologian, died in 2009, thought deeply, both these people have thought deeply on this subject of the human place in on our planet in relation to nature, in relation to other species. And what David Korten appears to be calling for is like another fiction, and not something that solidifies our commonality and what needs to be addressed first and foremost. And and being an economist himself and teaching, you know, in a business school, graduate school of business, you'd think he would have a huge understanding
of the economy,
yeah,
right.
of what the impact of economics is on every single person in the world. And we've invented this system. I mean, this is a story that has been invented. It's, you know, if he wants to talk about stories, this is a story, and I called it a tall tale because, you know, it really isn't benefiting everyone the way that we practice it now.
Matter of fact, it's been benefiting very few of the 7 billion people on the planet. It benefits very few. Most people who are alive today are having their basic needs met, their education, food,
But
and shelter.
what cost in their lifetime?
Their lifetime
Right.
is many, many hours a day, where there's so much technology out there and there's so much natural resources out there. Even the 7 billion people can get their education, food, and shelter, their minimum needs met for about an hour a day, according to people who we've checked out and who study this kind of stuff.
So I want to give David Korten, you know, a fair, well, I'll try to give him a fair read here, and but I'm not going to read the whole article because it is. I encourage you to read it and come to your own conclusions. But I will read what the publisher. I'm not sure where it was published originally, but Seattle University, Seattle, Washington, is a location where
we
David Korten
have it on
seems to be
alternative. There's something to
writing
do with
from.
alternative radio. Because
Oh
that's-
yeah, AR Alternative Radio. Maybe I think they must have broadcast a lecture of his, and this may be a transcript of that lecture. That could easily be. He seems to have been in front of an audience for this, and somebody transcribed the lecture. So anyways, his little biography here, David Korten was an insider in the development establishment for several decades. You know, whatever the development establishment refers to, I guess, what, business? He worked for the Ford Foundation and USAID, which is US Aid, and taught at Harvard University's Graduate School of Business. Having severed his ties to the past, today he is a leading voice for economic and social justice. He is a co-founder and board chair of Yes magazine. He is the author of When Corporations Rule the World, The Great Turning, Agenda for a New Economy, and Change the Story, Change the Future. Now this article clearly is referring to the Change the Story, Change the Future concept that one of his books is about. I think I'll read the opening paragraph, and this is where I'm sure now that he's addressing an audience because the way it's stated. Quote, "It is very significant that we meet here in a Jesuit university. As you know, quote, Pope Francis is a Jesuit. I am very taken by the point from his recent homily about money, where he said, quote, the worship of the ancient golden calf has returned in a new and ruthless guise in the idolatry of money and the dictatorship of an impersonal economy truly lacking in human purpose." You know, that says the whole thing to me.
Now wait. I just want to bring this out to you. Like in the old days, they worshipped the golden calf, and today they say, "How much money do you have? How much money?
What do you do for a living?
What do you do for a living to connote how much money you're going to make a year
Where's your education
And
from?
how many people say, "Where's the dough?" And then you say, "How much money do you have? How much do you want to spend?" This is back to the golden calf again. Not how much of your life are you willing to work for me, which is the case, or I'm willing to work for you because I really want to have that boat or that house or that car, or I just want to have food. How much of my life am I willing to work to grow my own food so I don't have to go to work for money to get that, where it's manipulated? So we're back to the golden calf again, and that's what the Pope was saying. And by the way, if you go on Bridges programming, you will see most of the encyclicals now up there. Thanks to Levi Steyer, who's our tech guy, who put a video.
Levi.
He put our stuff on in there, and it's the whole Pope's encyclical. And please don't hesitate to look at that. And we don't ask for money or anything. Just pass it on.
To it.
Just listen to it. Pass that concept on that all humanity has to have their basic needs met. This is Sunday on the Front Stoop by Bridges Programming. RenewTheEarth.org is one of the groups we deal with, and the impotence behind the program is Human Renewable Energy Measure. Okay, you can go back to that article, please.
Okay, and I'm just going to read. Go ahead.
What was that, Dennis?
Can I just add one thing?
Yes.
Right, yes. I was looking at a previous show before when I was talking. Right now, I do see the current show, and not just you and Susan, Jeff. I even see your yard. Wow, all those trees
Right.
down in Florida.
Yeah, that's a nice shot, and there's actually a rainstorm brewing up, and you can see the wind blowing everything around. In fact, that's a better picture than what you're seeing now. Just the two of us sitting here on the couch. But I want to reread that quote from Pope Francis that starts off this article, which I think says it all. Quote, "The worship of the ancient golden calf has returned in a new and ruthless guise in the idolatry of money and the dictatorship of an impersonal economy truly lacking in human purpose."
Right.
Unquote. This lacking in human purpose is what the HREM addresses directly and wants that addressed within our economics, how we practice our economics. We need to protect the commonality of all humans, of what we all need to survive. The very first thing our economics should satisfy, that's what being economical is all about. It's to use the best technology to satisfy what people really need, food, shelter, education, or food, nutrition, knowledge, however you want, whatever words make more resonance for you. Anyway, the author, David Korten, goes on to say, "It's interesting that the Pope understands the economy much better than most economists do." And that is a very important sentence that Mr. Korten is saying there, because he goes on at great length and doesn't really elaborate on what he understood at the very beginning of his lecture here, that it is the economics that's the problem. We don't have to change any story, in my opinion. We have to change the premise of our economics.
It needs to be
and
based.
Why he's shy of that, why he can't do that himself, being an economist and understanding that the Pope understands this better than he does. Right at the onset of his lecture, I don't know, there's some kind of a resistance there in his mind that I detect in this article. Now, someone else may read this and say, "Hey, he knew what this is all cool, everything's good." But anyway, I'm going to read on about what he's saying here. And he's saying this about Pope Francis and the quote that I just read. Basically, what he's saying is, we've all heard the phrase, quote, "money is evil." It's essentially saying money is not evil. It's the worship of money that is evil. The worship of a money as a false god. As I will go into, we have literally developed an economy around the worship of money. Well,
People
yes.
believe in money more than anything.
Then they believe in the survival of their own species, or their own lives, or their own
Well,
family.
the best joke I love when I talk about this topic is a guy walks up to you with a gun and puts it in your back and says, "Your money or your life." And then you say, "Well, take my life because I'm saving my money for my old age."
Right.
That to me is it's
Right.
a joke, but that's exactly what's happening now.
Right. Where the priorities
People
are.
who can afford to retire don't, because they want to make more money, so they live older. And the fact of the matter is, they normally they keep working till they die, and that's not the concept of life. We should be enjoying humanity, helping one another, not competing with one another, not trying to get the advantage over each other. I mean, the key is.
That's why Dennis uses that word greed, Greed.
Yeah, we know you love that word.
But Dennis, this is Sunday afternoon, and you and I, according to other people, are just as greedy as anybody else. Look at the yard I live in. Now,
It's all relative.
it's beautiful, and I theoretically own it, even though I don't. I pay taxes on it, and I maintain it and take care of it. But someone who doesn't have that would call me very greedy. Now, your definition of greed and my definition of greed, or someone else's definition of greed, is totally subjective. So without a measurement, you can't say someone's greedy. I'm more ambitious. Susan did all this work, planting every one of those trees you see. Now, does that make her greedy or ambitious? I mean, I'm sorry to say that the word greed is nothing more than an emotion. And if it's only an emotion, pardon me?
When they gave you a share of stock, what was that stock in?
I own one stock, and the only thing is my share in stock, Dennis, is less damaging than most people who go out for dinner every day.
Wow.
Well, I think that's subjective.
No, that's the way I feel about it. Like I know about 5,000 groups of people who are nuns, and they own shares of stock. Will you consider them greedy?
No, believe me, I'm not saying stockholders. I'm saying that particular share is in an oil company.
No. I'm talking about in ExxonMobil. They are probably 1,000 different organizations who are religious organizations
That own those stocks.
Nuns and Jesuits and Jews and Christians. They all own stocks. Now, are they in that same company, in the oil companies? Would you consider them wrong to own those stocks?
What if they're having some kind of impact?
What's that, Dennis?
In particular oil companies, yes. I would say it's wrong.
There are
those oil companies, yes.
There are schools now, universities that are divesting themselves of oil stocks. I can't off the top of I think Yale.
But okay,
Big universities.
Dennis, I'm going to challenge you to say to you, you can no longer use oil any longer at all, ever. So therefore, you're going to have to turn off all your electric. You won't be able to drive your car, and you won't be able to buy anything at the supermarket. You do that for 2 weeks, and let me know how you feel about oil.
You know that? We could have done that 20 years
No,
ago.
not could have. Do it now.
Wow. We can actually get off of oil.
No, you can't.
Anytime we want.
Dennis, try to get off of oil. Try to get off of fossil fuel. I mean, liquid
Put solar
transportation.
panels on those roofs.
No, you can't.
Get off of fossil
Dennis, I could not. I have solar panels on my roofs. I have solar. I drive an electric car. I have solar panels here. We have solar panels on our boats. We still can't get away from fossil fuel because I can't make those solar panels without fossil fuel.
Okay, but look at all the fossil fuel that we're burning now. Once you make those solar panels and you put them on all those roofs out there, you don't have to put any more, you're done.
No, that's totally not true. And I'll tell you why. You're in a misconception, because Siemens Solar tried to do that. They put in a $12 million array just to build the solar panels. And they said, once we build the solar panels, we'll be able to use solar panels and solar heat to make the panels. And they couldn't do it. They had to go to natural gas to get the BTU content.
go to natural gas, you are ruining the planet.
Right point, but that's what they had to do to build the solar panels.
But can I ask you, like 20 years ago, how much did our country have in debt? We're not talking trillions of dollars or billions or millions. We were down to like no debt in this.
What is it? But you don't understand what debt is. What is debt?
Debt is you can print dollars, and if we 20 years ago printed dollars and just put solar panels on every
we didn't do that, did we?
No, we didn't. You're right.
Okay, so if we didn't do that, you're dreaming. So what are we doing now? We are killing people around the world with our drones and our bombs. We are absolutely creating other people who hate us because our drones and our military and the Western military. France was just bombed because they're saying ISIS did it, but they're not saying why ISIS hates us so much. And it's not because of idealistic stuff. It's because of our economic system. They look to see what our economic system is doing, and they realize they're killing their daughters and their mothers and their fathers with our drones. And our economic system, as the Pope was saying, is horrendously bad. And therefore, so now we have a war. It doesn't really matter whether it's stocks or bonds or Hillary Clinton or Rudy Giuliani or any other president in the world. They're controlled by the economic system. And once we realize that we're part of the problem, you and I are killing people every single day of the week because of our economic system, we have no choice. We have no choice. And the only thing we're going to do, if we keep on dreaming what we could do or should do, nothing will ever change. We need to see what the problem is. I think that there's nothing wrong with trying to be ambitious. I think there's nothing wrong with trying to make sure that if somebody wants to work an hour a day, they should have all their basic needs met. If somebody wants to work 23 more hours out of that day and they don't want to sleep, they have the right to do whatever they want to do as an individual, as long as no other human being is being hurt by their work. In other words,
deprived of their life
being
needs.
Deprived of their needs,
Right.
Not their wants. If you want to work harder and do something, that doesn't make you greedy. That makes you more ambitious, Dennis. Look, for instance, I ask people on this program, I'm giving them all the information I can possibly give them. I ask them, please look up Zeitgeist Moving Forward. Money is Debt. Bridges Programming. Renew the Earth. Learn how to get these messages out so we don't kill people. And what do? They don't have the time. I'm too busy. Well, that makes them lazy. It doesn't make or a bad judge of time, but that doesn't make them. It doesn't make them greedy, or the person who looks it up isn't greedy. They're just trying to learn and help people. They're ambitious. And as long as they're ambitious, it doesn't make them greedy. In most cases, in this world, when you're ambitious and you do something that benefits the system around you, you make money with that. Like if you design a hula hoop and everybody wants your hula hoop, you make a lot of money with that. If you design a car that gets better miles to a gallon, people want to buy it if it's cheap enough, and they buy it, and they have better miles to a gallon. But if someone can't afford that car, they can't afford a $30,000 car, then they have to drive a clunker that gets 12 miles or 15 miles to a gallon. So does that make the person who's driving a car that gets 40 or 50 or 60 miles to a gallon greedy because another person can't afford to buy that technology? Is that greedy?
No.
Why not?
No. What I was saying is there's a big difference between ambition, which is great, and greed, which goes beyond the limit.
What is the limit?
Ambitious.
Who's going to decide the limit, Dennis? Are you God? Can you decide the limit?
No, 99% of the people on this planet can tell you.
How do you?
When you're killing people.
No, that is not. Again, 99% of the people on the planet are living well. Not well, but they're working their asses off 16, 20 hours a day to stay alive, and they do not agree with you. They do not agree with you at all. They agree that if they agreed with you, then we would stop the problem. By the way, we have some wild cats in our neighborhood, and I just see if I can show them to you now. They're around the.
Oh, he's in the background.
He's in the
there.
background.
He's yellow and white.
He may come over here, and
we'll leave it on the.
I'll leave it on the screen for a bit. But I'm saying
more
too
interesting out there.
but the word greed is totally subjective. So when you keep on using a subjective term, it's like, how much taxes should I pay? And it's subjective on your part. It's how much do you love your cat, or you love your animal, or what do you believe you want to do? Wants, not needs. So when you deal with subjective things, they're very difficult to. They're totally, it's like listening to Fox News.
Well, that's what I want to go back to this article, because I think, that David Korten hits a lot of very good points all through it, and it's definitely worth reading. But as you're saying, when it becomes a subjective thing, you can't then do any kind of worthwhile movement within an economic system towards satisfying things that are subjective, because they can go any direction.
Right, because
and when you talk about
it becomes argumentative. Like you would keep on saying the word greed. Well, you can't tell me what the numbers are, and your opinion is greedy. That's a word. It's how much you love someone. How much do I love Susan, or how much do I love the cat, or love the car, or the house, or money, or whatever. That is subjective. You can't measure that. Mm-hmm. But when you measure basic needs met, that's measurable.
It's possible to do.
We know every human being needs education, food, and shelter, and we can measure that in energy units.
I don't want to give this article short shrift, because it is done by a very a person
before
who's
you read that, can I just add one other thing?
Sure.
Because I just think that the limit of what I was calling greed is, for instance, like over in the Middle East, if there's oil under the ground, and people are dying because we want to get that oil out of the ground at the lowest cost we can get, to me that's greedy. It's a really good discussion for Sunday on the Front Stoop, where we all would agree we should love thy neighbor, thou shalt not kill.
But it is, Dennis, I think you can substitute the word terrorism for the word greed. I mean, if you're going to another country and subduing them, however you're terrorizing them so that you can get their resources. It doesn't even have to do with greed anymore. It has to do with another level of abuse, abuse that we do within our economic system in order to get what the economics demands at this time, which is profit and power consolidation. Profit consolidation and constant acceleration of that, and the brainwashing of the public that there's scarcity and not enough for everyone. This kind of thing, and our author, David Korten, talks about that. He says, quote, "The difficulty is that the simple self-evident truths are all fundamentally contrary to what we are normally taught through most of our education system and through most of corporate media." Now, and he says we have a commonality, and here's what he expresses on this paragraph, that commonality. It all comes down, quote, "to simple principles in the end. The interesting thing about it is these principles live in the human heart. They are principles with which we are born. They are principles that were well understood by the earliest humans," unquote, and they live in your heart, unquote. Now, he's talking about a moral core that we share as a human species, and we're much more able to access this in the earliest humans were not, obscuring it as much as we do now. But he's saying, and then he quotes from Thomas Berry, who's a Catholic theologian who died in 2009. And he said, quote, "For people generally, their story of the universe and the human role in the universe is their primary source of intelligibility, and value. The deepest crisis experienced by any society are those moments of change when its story becomes inadequate for meeting the survival demands of a present situation. And I would say, I would just substitute, its economics becomes inadequate for meeting the survival demands of a present situation, unquote. I mean, if you're talking about a story, you don't even have to, because we know we all have a moral core that is, you know, our deepest story. You don't have to overlay anything more on that. And this is me speaking, but I'm saying that the economics that we've created as a social system and that we're demanding and coercing everyone to live under and to operate within is inadequate to our survival demands. Presently it has become and has been becoming over maybe thousands of years, you could make the case, inadequate for human survival needs. And this, to my mind, is what the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure, addresses, and that most people are afraid to go there and say that our needs can be quantified and can be satisfied by economics.
Well,
first of all,
Well, I want to hit something else.
before anything else.
I want to hit
before Dennis, before greed, before terror. You know, there will not be those words will not have even the word terrorism. I would submit that if we are able to quantify and satisfy human needs within our economic system, first off, worldwide, you will see terrorism disappear in probably less than one generation.
Right. Because basic needs would be met.
Right. People do not become radicalized unless their lives are threatened, unless the lives of their families are threatened, their community is threatened, their actual survival is in jeopardy. And this is what's happening, has happened in many countries we can list, is happening right now in Syria. Refugees are leaving in droves because they see that they will probably die and their children will die if they remain in their country.
Well, they'll have to work as slaves.
Well, they're already doing that,
Right.
you know, and that didn't work, you know, so they're leaving. There are no jobs. There's no way to make it happen anymore.
Well, no, but there are jobs, but they're working 15, 16, 18 hours
There
a day.
may be some.
But they're
I
going
don't
through the Golden
know.
Heights and they have to go through different
No,
checkpoints.
we're talking about Syria.
All over
Well,
the
you're
world,
talking about
all over the
Palestine.
world, Palestine,
Yeah, right.
Syria, Africa,
Right.
you name it, all over the world, we're killing people. Now, the most important thing, in my opinion, is to understand that we, you and I, everyone here, everyone in the
who
Western
has
world are killing people every day. And then you get these shots that generally in the Western part of the world from theoretically ISIS, because they want to get back at us because they're frustrated. And we're killing those people because of our economic system. We are responsible for that. And let's take that responsibility that we have to change the way we do business. And it's not just fuel, it's our cell phones, it's our entire way we worship money. It's on the entire way we understand money. When we talk about education, how much it costs us. That's about money. We need to change the way we think about it. The basis thinking about money should not be based on living. Life should be respect of humanity, respect of the earth, the water, the soil. Those are the things we should be respecting. Not money. Money is a way of just transferring my IOU to your IOU. I'm willing to give you some of my hours of my life. You're willing to, and you're giving to me some of your hours of your life now by cutting my grass, and I'll help you with doing something like build a house and take some of my IOUs and give you those IOUs. That's all money is. They're IOUs. And no one should love to try to make IOUs. I mean, can you imagine
Well,
building your
banks
whole
love to
life
do that.
to make IOUs? I'm gonna work my ass off to give you IOUs, or collect IOUs, but you're not doing anything physical, and that's
Yes.
the point.
That's my, Jeff, that's why I like doing this show with you and Susan, because if I turn on mainstream media, they're going to tell me how evil the Shiites are, the Sunni, or ISIS. You know,
Right.
they're so evil. But if you, in this country, you and me and Susan, everybody in this country loves freedom. We love democracy. If our leader, let's say Obama, was taken out and replaced by a dictator, just so that some other country can get a good price on oil under the ground over here, you know, that's, for example, we would not be happy because we would say, wait a minute, we want a free country. Well, maybe the ISIS and the Shiites and the Sunnis over there on the other side of the world are unhappy because we take out their democratically elected leader, like in Iran, we put the Shah of Iran in there, and we get a good price on oil. You know, Saudi Arabia.
But Dennis, don't you understand that we're part of that deal?
Because
We
we're
don't-
living,
we're
and actually Bonnie made this point. Americans in the United States are, 3% of the world population, but we use 30% of the
natural resources. And then
And
France is another large, all the Western world is
So-
taking natural resources from the eastern part of the world.
But these natural resources are being taken in the name of profit. They're not being.
Well, in the name of freedom, in the name of freedom.
Well, that too. That the economics takes this and consolidates the profit in the hands of a very few. It does not distribute it in a egalitarian manner or in a manner to satisfy human
Humanity.
needs worldwide. So here's, this is our problem. This is our challenge of in this present day to solve this kind of inadequacy, this lack of balance. This premise that economics has been operating under, profit consolidation and power consolidation. You're not going to be actually, we get all kinds of other reactions to this, but I'm going to go back to the article because this is what we said we were going to talk about today. And the author, David Korten, refers later on, I think in the second page of this one, to the attitude of indigenous environmental leaders at the Rio Environmental Conference, a couple of years ago. And he says they were talking about their role in preparing for the Earth Summit, and they noted that mainstream corporate interests are saying, yes, we must protect nature. Nature is very valuable, but to protect her, we have to put a price on her. Oh, they said, if you put a price on her, then the richest buy her. And that's what's going on. The richest are buying and then selling back to us our natural resources, and then they take the profit. And, and we are the slaves to this system. And they would say, these indigenous leaders say, no, Earth is our sacred Earth Mother. She cannot be for sale. And once you put a price on
solar panels,
on what is essential for everyone, a price on what is
food,
essential for
water,
all
right.
human life, and I'm just talking about the human species right now, because life will continue on this planet without us in some form. It doesn't depend on us. We're not the only experiment that nature is doing here. But if we want to survive as a species, you cannot put a price on nutrition, shelter, and knowledge. Those things need to be satisfied just with the cooperative efforts of humanity.
Right.
And each person will contribute, to their best ability for an hour or two a day. Maybe you'd say 5 days a week. You get the weekend off. Who knows how that would evolve? But it should not be all their work time
So
of their
just-
whole work life.
Just to make a living.
And then when they're totally wrung out at the end of their life in their 60s and 70s, you say, oh, by the way, we're going to take your pension and maybe cut your Social Security or whatever. And, you know, you've got to go back to work as a slave for the rest of your life. Or you kind of eke it out for the rest, you know, and kind of you're pretty beat up by that time if you spent your whole time, your living time, making a living under this economics that we all recognize and understand how it works. You're slaves at different levels in it. And there's insufficient free time for people to think creatively, to live their lives, their real time, their time in the manner that they choose.
That's individualism. Go ahead, Dennis. What were you going to say?
Yeah, just an example of what Susan was just saying. Imagine if you were living in a dysfunctional government that needs reform, and right after World War II, there's a baby boom. A lot of baby boomers are born right after World War II, and that's just when you start something called Social Security. So that when you go to work, every day that you're working, you're putting money into Social Security all the time that you're working, because you're told when you retire, you're going to have Social Security for the rest of your life.
Okay,
But
Dennis, hold it, Dennis. The minute you use the word money, is how much money should you put into the Social Security system? Tell me how much I need to put in. How about a penny a day? Or if I put a penny a day into the Social Security system, is that going to give me security when I'm older?
Well, if you live over 120 years, maybe.
No, I'm saying right now, if a kid puts in a penny a day to the Social Security system, is that going to give him enough money to take care of him when he's 65 or 62 years old?
No.
Why? So now that's the problem. When you just said money and system, you're playing into the system just like stocks or anything else. I'm saying to you, if you, now watch what I'm saying here. Listen to this. Get the word money out of your statement and say, if we put an hour or two a day excess above our 1 hour a day of work to stay alive into our Social Security system. In other words, supposing 1 hour a day gives us our basic needs met. And then we put 2 more hours a day into our Social Security system. Not money, hours of life a day. Every day of my working life. Now listen. That means I work my hour for my basic needs met, maybe some more, but I'm adding 2 more hours of my life into the bank of living. And then when I hit 65 and I only have maybe 20 more years left, I take my hours of labor back out of that life. And I know that bank of hours of life. Right. Forget about money. I'm taking, now I've got every single day, I've got 2 more days every day. So now if I put 20 years in there, I've got at least 40 more years left every day of life. That is what you need to focus on, not how much money, because if you put money in, money's manipulated and money can be changed and numbers change. But if you put hours of life in, no, they're right there. Your basic needs will always be met until you die of an old age, and most people will die about 80. And if you use that table, the actual table, that in 80 years of human life, that it's 65 you stop, and you got 40 more years of life. Some will die younger, and some will die older. And then if you want to work a little more, put some more into the system, you're welcome to do that. And work a little more every day to put money, not money, but life into the system. You can correlate it to money if you want, but you'll never change the hours of life. That's the important thing. So when you go back to after the wars and and the reason for the wars, by the way, the Second World War was based on money, on Hitler trying to take land. Before that, it was some other people trying to take land.
Hitler supported by corporations.
And then before that, it was the kings, and they tried to take land, and they had the Roman Empire, and they tried to take land, and you keep on going on and on, back and back and back, and you see it's all about economics. And when you realize that if we add the life blood into this and say can't use money for it, you got to use. That's what happened. We became worshipers of money, which is the same as worshipers of the golden calf.
Okay, well, let's go back to David Korten's voice in
Okay,
this
go
article,
ahead.
because it brings and talks to what you've just been saying here. He talks about the story that we have right now, which is our sacred money and market story, as he refers to it, and he says that that's the type of story that we're functioning under, and that it's been formed by corporate interests, the powerful corporate interests. And these are the elements, quote, that make it up. Time, these are the things that we're being told, the propaganda, you'll recognize it, quote, time is money, money is wealth, making money creates wealth, making money is the defining purpose of people, business, the economy. The rich are obviously society's wealth creators. Affluent lifestyles are their fair and just reward. Material consumption drives prosperity, and it is a path to happiness. Poverty is a consequence of laziness. The earth belongs to us. It is our human nature to be individualistic, competitive, and acquisitive, and guided by the invisible hand of the free market. Well, you can see where that's going. I don't need to read it all. We're all very familiar with this kind of stuff. And what has happened is this story, as he calls it, this sacred money and market story, people who, most everyone is excluded from the benefits of a story, or you want to call them benefits, but from the results of a story like this. And what's being done, they're controlling, quote, our access to the basic needs of living. When you control access to the basic means of living, you totally control society. And this is what has happened in our economics. And this is playing out in the economic system.
Right
We
now.
are participating in it. And by participating in it, the symptoms all around the world that, we would like them to not occur, the terrorism that just most recently in France, the killing of so many people. This is a symptom.
I want to bring this out. They physically shot and killed about 100 and some odd people, and it's a terrible thing. I'm not saying it's not. However, we are killing thousands of people every single day through our economic system. We are literally killing people. We're poisoning the water. We're poisoning the air. We're poisoning the land. We are killing people every day. People are getting hurt in accidents because of lack of rulings that make sure it's safe. So people are working their butts off 10, 12 hours a day, getting tired, and then all of a sudden a blade comes down where they're cutting some wire or cutting some glass or whatever, and it falls on top of them and cuts them and they bleed to death. Thousands and thousands of people a day are dying because of that. It's not just the terrorism. We are creating terrorism through our economic system.
And I'm just going to now one page here where our author, David Korten, tries to draw together all of his concepts. And I want, as I said, I don't want to give him short shrift. There's no reason to say that he's not right on in every way, except that he doesn't talk about the possibility that economics can solve this, because this is the system that we're functioning under, and its premise is improper. The premise needs to be, what are our survival commonality? What is our survival needs
That we agree upon.
That we agree
in
upon.
energy units that can't be manipulated.
And so what you just described, and he would call this, quote, an acts of collective suicidal insanity.
Right.
The kind of participation that we all have in our economics right now, and the goal of our economics is a collective suicidal insanity. if we go, here he's going on to say, quote, if we begin to get into our consciousness that Earth is a living organism, a community of life that self-organizes to maintain the conditions essential for us to exist, you get a very different perspective on how we might go about organizing our economy. You also see in the total pattern of this unfolding of creation a constant arrow always toward greater complexity. And I agree entirely. Diversity is where our survival will ultimately be possible. We must encourage diversity. And so now he goes on to say, I call this kind of story that he wants to create a sacred living life and living earth story. And then he goes on to say, time is life. Real wealth is living wealth. Money is just a number useful as a medium of exchange in well-regulated markets. We humans are living beings, born of and nurtured by living earth. Life exists only in community. We are part of nature, not apart from nature. And so he's talking about a larger community that includes the processes of nature, which are trying to encourage us, trying to teach us, because nature's been here accomplishing life
since the planet began.
Right, well, for an excellent long time, and we've only been here a short little bit
And we
of
don't
time.
even really
And
know.
we haven't even been here as long as the dinosaurs yet, and we were doing a lot of damage.
More damage. Right?
Quote, our human nature calls us to care and share for the benefit of all. Increasingly, brain science is discovering that that is actually wired into our brains. That's interesting. I'd like to research that myself, that we are, our brains function in that manner. If you look at the fundamental assumptions of conventional economics, individualistic greed, ruthless competition, and violence against life are indicators of serious psychological and societal dysfunction.
See, there's the two words, greed and dysfunction.
Right. They're the characteristics of the psychopath and the sociopath, and yet we set it up as the ideal for economic behavior. The proper purpose of any human institution, whether business, government, or civil society, is to support people as productive, contributing, sharing members of a vibrant and prosperous living earth community. And then he goes on to say, quote, creating a living economy that organizes as life organizes to maintain and enhance the conditions for life. It's all about survival. And so anyways, he goes on, in communities almost everywhere, increasing numbers of people are organizing to bring forth a living economy. And then he goes on to talk about the rebuilding of communities, organic agriculture, biodynamic agriculture. But he's not saying at this point where he's saying what good things are being done, it's still within the concept of the economics that we're building, that we've built there, but that's just a small thing. When somebody is eloquently mapping out the problems and the symptoms, it's a very important thing for us to read. And so see if we can find David Korten's
neighbors out of work because they closed the factory. Try to stretch your paycheck, it's never quite enough for energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
By an economic system.
Fossil fuel affects our lives
Thank
like
you all for
ripples on a
listening.
lake. Cars and farms and factories and
Brought to you by Renew the Earth.
lines go down, the prices soar, our futures are at
You're listening to
stake.
Sunday on the
And when
Front
it's
Stoop.
gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Susan. Thank you all for listening. This is
It all comes
Business
down to energy.
Program. We'll be back again on
Wonder
Wednesday.
where the money's gone. Well, here's some
Another
fuel for
topic
thought.
about how we
It all comes down to
Thank you, Dennis.
energy.
Bye, Dennis.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy. Energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.